Not all black and white, not all black and white. Charles woke suddenly. Where was he? Why was it so hot? Charles tried to get up, but his legs hurt and seemed to be bogged down in something. Sand. He was in the middle of the desert. He was fighting a war. The sun bore down on him relentlessly as he rose to his unsteady feet. Help, is there anybody there? Where are my troops? Charles slowly trudged onward through the sea of sand which seemed to be endless. He was so hot, so thirsty. Please, I need a drink. Is there anybody there? It's okay, Mr. Charles, I'm taking you in out of the sun, and we'll get you a drink. The nurse pushed the wheelchair back inside the large building. Charles started to shiver. The darkness overwhelmed him and it was so cold, so very cold. Where is my coat? I need my coat. I'll freeze to death in here. Charles could see icicles forming on the arms of his chair. The snow was getting deeper, the wind was blowing and he couldn't see a thing. Someone gave him a coat which he threw over himself to keep warm. Have you taken your tablets today, Mr. Charles? You need to keep taking them, to keep away the delusions. What was she talking about? He knew who he was, Charles Danford, and this was his mansion in Egypt. The darkness enveloped him as he felt his way along the edge of the cliff. He knew he had to be careful so as not to get trapped in the deep sand. I should reach the bunker soon, it isn't far from the camp. I just wish I could see where I was going. Suddenly there was a loud crack. The bright light stung his eyes and he tried to cover them up. Oh no, they must have blown up the camp. Wakey, wakey, Mr. Charles. Time to get up and have a shower, to start the day. Though what sort of a day you will have, I could never imagine in a million years. To Charles most days were the same. He was back fighting a war in Egypt. He also owned a large mansion in Egypt, which he shared with his fellow fighters. Charles had been stuck in this war for more than 20 years. Still fighting and still trying to escape. Every day, something had happened to his brain when he had been too close to an explosion, and now he had no way of going forward. His family had despaired of trying to look after him as he needed full-time care. They visited on a regular basis, but Charles always thought they were his fellow fighters, and encouraged them to carry their rifles and follow him on his patrols, so they would leave again. You have a visitor today, Mr. Charles. Your daughter is coming to see you. That will be nice, won't it? Charles looked at the nurse with a blank face. Who was this woman that kept trying to talk to him? You are dismissed, Sergeant. I need to work on my maps today, and I don't want to be disturbed. The nurse sighed to herself and shook her head, wondering if he would ever come out of his imaginary world to at least say hello to his daughter. As Charles sat there talking to himself, his only daughter arrived. Hello, Dad, she said as she gave him a peck on the cheek. How are you going today? Do you know who I am? Of course I know who you are. His daughter smiled and gave him a hug. You are the field sergeant, and you should be in the barracks with the others. Why are you here bothering me, when I am trying to work on my maps? Sergeant, take this soldier back where she belongs, or I will have her court-martialed. With that he went back to talking and working on an imaginary sheet of maps he held in front of him. Charles' daughter rushed back inside, tears streaming from her eyes. She so loved her dad, but now he didn't know her, and his doctor said he only had a short time left, before his mind stopped working completely. Oh, Mr. Charles, where are you? Why can't you come back to us, just for a while? Just long enough to acknowledge your daughter. It would make her so happy. The nurse said as she pushed his chair back into his room. What are you babbling on about, Sergeant? I know we need to set up an offensive at the corner near the Egypt Hotel. That is where we will be attacked today. Go and get your men ready to leave. The nurse sighed as she put a blanket over his knees and then left the room. For the rest of the day Charles and his men fought a battle. By 7 p.m. that night there were only 4 of them left. It was getting dark and they had hardly any ammunition left. Okay men, this is it. This is our last stand. We have to give it everything we have. I love you men like a family, and I wish you all the best. His men thanked him and then took up their positions for the last battle of their lives. They all fought valiantly but they were overwhelmed. As Charles lay on the dusty road, he thought about his family. He had a daughter back home somewhere, but he hadn't seen her for a very long time. She must be a grown-up woman by now. Charles could hear someone yelling in the distance. Help had arrived, but he knew it was too late.
Alone time, are you coming tonight? I couldn't bring myself to meet her eyes. Mariana stared at me with a look of eagerness, a look that hurt me to make disappear. She'd asked this question the past month about twice a week, each time a little emptier than the last. I didn't blame her. I hung my head, a head so heavy on my shoulders, and weakly shrugged. With that, she pursed her lips, tucked a loose strand of dark hair behind her ear, and gently placed her hand on my shoulder. Just let me know if you're ready. Molly, the idea of being ready seemed unattainable. Breaking up with Dominic was one of the most painful things I'd ever endured. Never in my life could I imagine the pain that comes with saying goodbye to a long-term partner, and the relationship we tirelessly worked to build together. This entire month was one of complete and utter despair. I was a negative mass of energy that did what it was supposed to do, but saw no point in it. Mariana saw this. She saw my grief. She stayed with me the night we ended things. And the following few nights. I couldn't bear to be alone, even more so in current times, and she knew it. We sat in my dim living room, illuminated only by the street lamp outside, and uttered no words. No television, no music. What I needed was another soul in the room, cradling in it what was left of mine. Those nights were some of the darkest nights I have ever had the displeasure of knowing. The dust stirred in the light peeking through the blinds, giving a thin coat to the surfaces of a room I no longer cared for. This room was now haunted. He had claimed this space by filling it with futile memories. Memories of the nights where we'd laugh over a game of cards and a few too many glasses of Chardonnay, memories of running my fingers through his thick, sandy hair while watching Survivor. These broke my heart more than the times of struggle. Reminiscing about these peaceful moments only reminded me of the current state my life was in, but one memory pulled the trigger, one evening, one gut-wrenching evening. Consumed me wholly every time it invaded my thoughts. The evening where we sat on my velvet blue sofa, chatting about how we would spend the night. He contributed little to the talk of plans. The soft light of the sun's setting glow made the room airy, almost dreamlike, looking back. White wainscoting wrapped around the perimeter of the room, just below the pale yellow walls, a color Dominic insisted on, and still remains in a now olive green room. Alarm bells went off in my head. Something was wrong. This I was sure of. So I pressed the matter. Before a word could be spoken, his face gave it away. His expression is forever ingrained in my mind. I don't know how to say this. I don't think this relationship is what I want anymore. My heart disintegrated. If it wasn't pounding in my chest, ringing in my ears, I would have thought the fucking thing gave out, but that's all in the past. Just as the version of me before that evening is, people would call me the life of the party. Once upon a time, I was always equipped with an enticing story, a clever joke, or an ear willing to listen. These were things I never saw in myself, despite those around me telling me otherwise. I only saw them once they vanished. My energy was drawn from the people around me. I'd make every effort to go out whenever I was able to, hanging out with friends at the local watering hole, or maybe grabbing a cup of coffee. Of course, Dominic was by my side in a majority of those excursions. Our inseparability was apparent to everyone who encountered us. In some way, I felt that my inability to be alone created an unhealthy dynamic. My identity had been placed within his, and his within mine. I no longer knew what I needed. Did I need to try and go out with Mariana, surrounding myself with people? Or did I stay like I had each night of that month, succumbing to my unmade bed the second I returned from work? Any conversation I've had since that evening has left me feeling like a broken record. Without a second thought, his name escapes my mouth. It's as though I have to talk about it until it makes sense, but it doesn't. Shutting out the world was easier than boring people with memories of my partner. Ex-partner. Never in my life had I spent such a prolonged period of time in a state of isolation such as this. The idea of enjoying alone time had always baffled me each time I entertained it. But what slowly crept up on me was that, every so often, alone time was pretty okay. When you recharge through other people, sacrifices are always made. You won't get to go exactly where you want, as you have to take into account the desires and opinions of your friends. Or with Dominic, I realized that I was so concerned with his wants, I'd often suppressed my own. Rarely was there a sacrifice on his end, partially due to my submissive nature, but partially due to his selfishness. The F.